I got my cup of tea for this one because I'm going to be talking about other academics who were discovered in the Epstein files. And you know, all of us professors drink a lot of tea. For any of you that are new here, I'm Professor Einstein. I'm a former TV and advertising executive turned marketing critic. This information is based on an article from Inside Higher Ed, which I assume a lot of you don't read, but you can look it up online. The first person they mention is Nicholas Christakis, who you may know from his book Connected. So it says in here that he was looking for funding for his lab, but it's the correspondence toward the bottom of this that I want to highlight here. The day after the meeting, Christakis wrote to Epstein, "I really enjoyed the company and the setting and the many good questions, especially yours." To which Epstein replied, "Great date," and Christakis wrote back, "You are hilarious, my sense of humor." And what you are going to see over and over again in what I'm going to show you is a number of academics claiming that he was so smart, where that is not what appears in most reportage about him. And of course, later he says that he is appalled about what he found out about Epstein and he never got funding from him and so on. Well, first of all, why do you call a meeting a first date? And then you laugh at it when he says that to you. And two, this was after he had already been tried for abusing children. So this does not get you a pass, Professor. Another Yale professor in this article is David Gelernter, hard to say. And he's a computer science professor, and it was reported that he talked to Epstein between 2009 and 2015. But again, look at what he says about an undergraduate. "I have a perfect editoress in mind." Editoress? I've never heard that word before in my life. I've written 8 books, never heard it. "Yale senior, worked at Vogue last summer, runs her own campus magazine, art major, completely connected, very small, good-looking blonde." Why? Why do you need to say that? And again, you're going to hear him talk about Jeffrey Epstein being smart, just like the last guy did. He wrote to John Brockman, and we'll talk about Brockman in a minute. "I can't believe anyone anywhere could be more of a character than Jeff Epstein. I've never talked to a more interesting guy or one with more all-around horsepower and faster acceleration." Who talks about people like this? And let me add that I have an MBA, so I've hung around with finance guys. I've also been a professor for 26 years, so I've hung around professors. Who talks like this? And of course, he has to backtrack. And he says on Monday that he didn't know Epstein was a sex offender and they learned about his criminal history 5 years ago. Are you under a fucking rock, Professor? And he says from his standpoint, Epstein was maybe one of the 2 or 3 smartest men I've ever met. I would suggest to you that you step outside your office and meet some of your other colleagues at Yale. I assure you, he is not in the top 10. Never mind the top 2 or 3. So let's pause here and talk about John Brockman. John Brockman was a literary agent who was an agent for a lot of high-end professors, academics. And as you can see in the title of this article from the New Republic, he was Jeffrey Epstein's intellectual enabler. He was the guy who opened the door for Epstein to get into academia. And now we see a woman in the mix. This is the first time I've seen a woman beyond Maxwell listed in association with Jeffrey Epstein, certainly not in this kind of capacity. Lisa Randall is a Harvard physics professor. She flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, blah, blah, blah. But this is the part that gets my goat. Wow, haven't you had enough of house arrest? If she knew he was on house arrest, she had to know what he was on house arrest for. No? And if she didn't, shouldn't she have asked? Yes. And then no surprise down here, Randall told the Crimson, which is the paper at Harvard, that she met Epstein in 2004 at a dinner hosted by Brockman. Remember, I told you Brockman was the key guy to bring all these academics in. The last person I'll talk about in this academic rogues gallery is Dan Ariely. He's a business administration professor at Duke, meaning he's teaches MBAs, corresponded with Epstein between 2010 and 2016. He emailed Epstein to ask the name of a redhead who was with Epstein. She seemed very, very smart, and I would love to be able to meet her again at some point. And again, he is backpedaling faster than I don't know what. To be very clear, I encountered Jeffrey Epstein on only 4 occasions over the span of nearly a decade. My correspondence with him was infrequent, largely logistical, pertaining to conferences and academia, and was often mediated by assistants. I'm sorry, but your assistant didn't ask about meeting a redhead. I'm angry about this on so many levels, I can't even begin to deconstruct it. But what I can tell you is this. People like that give professors like me a really bad name. There's plenty of us who are working in the trenches, who are trying to help our students, who are teaching them how to think creatively, how to think critically and constructively. And we are not looking at them like they are bodies. They're not a redhead. They're not a blonde. They're a person. And with everything we've been seeing and hearing out of the Epstein files for the last several days, it's time to start thinking of other people as people. We're not parts. We're hearts and souls and minds.